Dr. D.
I think I've ever had to know Dr. Carolyn. It's just absolutely an amazing doctor. She's an herbalist. She has her pulse on the finger, or her finger pulse of what is happening in human health, in metaphysics. She's incredible with the metaphysical world. She is sharp as a tack. And she has developed, not only written her own thesis about how to work with magnesium mineral deficiency and also yeast overgrowth, but she's also created her own products to bring that level of therapeutic outcome to her satisfaction. And those results are reported every single week through our customer service. We get the incredible stories about what has happened for them and their families, what has happened in every aspect of their life, not just health, but after 34 years able. Your health affects every aspect of your being, and Dr.
Thank you, Ginny. That is very sweet. I like the precious word. I don't know if anyone's ever called me precious before, so I'm going to ride with that the duration of the show. Thank you. I'm precious.
You are precious.
I'm precious, along with the notes that tell me not to say, what do we keep saying? Good grief. You know, yes, I usually have a note in front of me that has in big letters, because it's so easy to say, drop into the unconscious of repeating words and saying weird things that after you listen to yourself. That's why I hate listening to myself or watching myself. Ginny and I did a whole bunch of YouTubes or videos, I guess you would say, for the products, and the last couple were nixed because nobody realized, especially myself, that I had lipstick all over my teeth. I mean, there it is. There's the other word. I mean, that's the other word we're supposed to not say. I'll make a note of that. I'm rambling.
What's the other word we're not supposed to say? I better write it down.
I mean.
Oh, I mean. Oh, I mean.
Right.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
I mean, they'll come up. I'll get Bob to tag me when I do it. It's just so easy. And part of that little sidebar rant is to distract me from what I really want to talk about. And this could be a blog, but I'm not too keen on writing it. I've been reading this book. It's a novel. It's about an eye doctor. I read a lot of medical kind of stuff, of course. So some eye doctor who was bullied when he was a kid in Catholic school because he had an eye problem. And the bully who really totally bullied him and beat him up almost to death, he ends up being a police officer and beating up his little girl and causing her to have a retinal eye detachment. And there was something then that the ophthalmologist eye doctor said about this guy being a sociopath and maybe even a psychopath, and how he just wouldn't he just couldn't learn, or he wouldn't pay for the insurance for with his insurance policy for his daughter to get the eye surgery because he was trying to blame his wife, attack his wife who was divorcing him. So anyway, all that to say, it made me think about sociopathy and psychopathology. And seriously, Jenny, I couldn't help but thinking that modern medicine is a psychopath or a sociopath. They have the definition of a sociopath: glibness and superficial charm, manipulative and conning, grandiose sense of self, pathological lying, lack of remorse, shallow emotions, incapacity for love. So I began to think, look at what happens when our customers, used to be my patients and clients, they go to a doctor and it's all glib and superficial. These doctors never get close to their patients. They're told not to. They manipulate them into taking medications and lie about the harm that they will cause. I mean, these doctors have to be reading about the side effects of these drugs. And they have a grandiose sense of self. They'll never take direction from a patient. I know it's a vast generalization, and that's why I'm trying to get it off my chest so I don't create a blog that is going to be really over the top, and it'll be attacked, I'm sure. And then they seem to have a lack of remorse or sense of shame or guilt when people are harmed by their treatments, or when they're attacking patients because they won't take these drugs because the patient knows they have side effects. So what do you think of that, Jenny? Does that ring bells for you?
Does it ring bells? I had the experience of it this weekend. I ended up taking a friend through a certain set of events to the emergency room, and they wanted to give this person prednisone. And I said, no, we'd like an alternative or something else. And he just looked straight at me and he said, prednisone is what I'm prescribing, and that's what he'll take. And I was like, no, we'll not take that. So, you know, they don't listen. You're absolutely right. Sociopathic, I think all those qualities really do apply. And it's so mechanical. It's a machine, a total machine in there.
Yes, so being a machine then, and this lack of remorse, shame, or guilt, the shallow emotions, incapacity for love, they just don't see patients as a fellow human being. You're supposed to treat patients as you would yourself or your loved ones, but there's this incredible detachment now that has been growing and growing.
Hey, Carolyn, isn't that the schools and medicine's a military operation? It's like making a Marine, and they're in there for 8-10 years before they're unleashed. So there's a lot of bitterness while all their buddies and friends are out partying and having fun. They're in the monastery, supposedly.
Yeah, it's true, and I've heard that. I've asked, even back in the day when I was in med school, I was asking these guys, well, why are you taking out these huge loans to buy this muscle car? And they said, well, we just don't have any fun in med school, so this is kind of a payback, an immediate payback. And yeah, so Bob's right. Yeah, and I thank whoever, and I guess myself mostly, who was responsible with getting me out of there quickly. I was in a system where I did 4 years of medicine, but the first year is just a blur, and it's okay. The second year is such a drag. Third year, you're in the hospital, so it was better. The fourth year was my clinical clerkship. And
you got a break, and you went to the SLAC school in McMaster.
Yeah. So in that SLAC school, where they had a set tutorial system, they never wrote an exam. They didn't do anything. I've talked about this before. And what happened with me, I'd already studied for 3 years. So I didn't study. I did the clerking. I went on the wards. I was so much on the wards that they didn't think I was a clerk after a while. They thought I was an intern, then a resident, because I was doing everything. Nobody else was on the wards. So I had to do everything. So I got my internship under my belt in my clerkship. And then when I went...
Hey, Carolyn, and 2 months of that year, you're playing in Los Angeles with Aldous Huxley's widow, and learning all this Asian stuff that came over because of the Nixon trips, and at the UCLA Pain Control Clinic. And we were hanging out with Dave Worster, and that's when I met Mary McLuhan. We were partying. It was a great 2 months in October, November.
Yeah, I ran my vacation month along with my elective month, and was down at the UCLA School of Pain Control. And anyway, so then my internship, I just, quote unquote, there's a I aced it because I already had done so much. And out of 100 interns, I was the only one that got out into private practice. So I just had those short 4 years, whereas now we heard from a medical librarian that they demand you to do a specialty. You have to stay on and do a few more years in family medicine, or if you want to be an internist. Nobody wants to do family medicine anymore. They just don't think there's anything there to be excited about. So everybody's staying in for another 4-6 years. So they're just pulverized puppets by the time they get out. I was lucky because I got out quickly enough that I still had my wits about me. I went in wanting to do alternatives and came out still wanting to do alternatives. So I was totally blessed. And I am the person in front of you today who's been attacked by the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Ontario for saying bad things about sugar on TV. And then I was investigated when some plant accused me of not giving him a homeopathic remedy on his first visit for allergies. And
when homeopathy was illegal.
Yeah, so they had to use whatever happened in that visit to attack me, which gave them access to my files. I was the Gestapo of the college swarmed into my office the last week of my practice
in
Toronto, Canada. I was going off to New York. I had given a year's notice to all my patients, and the college, I guess, finally found out about it. Now, we have to attack her before she leaves. And on my leaving week, they came in and invaded my office, took files. And after a year, I got in touch with my lawyer, who I hired right away, and I said, well, what's up with this? And he called the college, and they said nothing was up. Until a year or so later, I decided to get my California license, and then Canada came down on me and said, well, actually, they took my license away in absentia, so that was huge. And then when I went to apply for my California license...
No, you applied for California in 93. They took away your license in 95. You had your license, and then they reported to California that, hey, we took away our license. You got to take away the California license. And then you got a lawyer.
Right, and California thought that the whole process in Canada was so illegal and ridiculous and biased that they didn't take away my license, and that's usually just a given. One licensing, one licensing body says you're a bad doctor, and the other one will just lockstep agree. So...
And the incredible thing, Ginny, is that Carolyn remained cheerful all through those years. Of course, I was a great comedian, so I kept her laughing. But the point is, she didn't let it bother her. She didn't even know they took away the license until her friend called her up and said, "Hey, your picture's in this journal that summarizes the year."
I doubt if it was a picture.
Well, they had your name in there, and then they told you, and Carol told you, and that was that. But you have to say, Carolyn's either kind of numb to what's going on around her life, or she's brave. But she was very detached about the whole thing as it was happening.
Yeah, right. And then every once in a while something like this happens where I read the novel, I get this real, upside the head just revelation that doctors, well, let's say modern medicine is a sociopath. You cannot say anything against that analysis. You cannot say to me, you could bring up probably tens of thousands of doctors who are great doctors, but they're in a sociopathic system, and they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, the military operation is a good metaphor. Just look at any military movie showing soldiers in the Middle East or Afghanistan or something, you know, American soldiers. They're walking around with their rifle. They're not very personable to the locals.
No.
That's what Ginny encountered. She encountered a Marine sergeant and said, "No, we're going to do this." So Ginny, how did you stop it? Just leave?
Yeah, you just have to ignore them. You just leave. You just get your stuff done and then you leave. That's right.
But your friend, I mean, you think of a person who has the problem and they don't have an advocate with them. They can get really sucked into that negativity.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I just feel that just to go back and comment, Bob, about what you were saying about how Carolyn's indifferent to what's going on or whatever, I think from what I take from what she said, to me it sounds like Carolyn knew she was a doctor before she ever went to medical school. And she was behaving as a doctor even when she was a clerk. And she's always been a doctor. She's probably had 1,000 lives where she was a doctor. And she wasn't seeking anybody's permission to be a doctor, so she didn't require anybody's permission for a license or this or that. And when they tried to thwart her in whatever way they did, she's just like, that doesn't change my identity. They do say that most people make their choices from their identity. So if your identity is a victim, you're going to choose from that. If your identity is powerful, you'll choose from that. If your identity is a doctor, you're going to do what a doctor does, and that's be a doctor. So whereas, you know, these medical schools are trying to make these people be doctors, and they can't make a person be a doctor. They just fill their heads with knowledge, and then they plug them into that sociopathic system that is totally cold and cruel and full of drugs and devices that are detrimental to people. And I don't, you know, and then to me what's interesting is that like if you were working in an emergency room and you gave somebody all these drugs and this and that and so on and so forth, and then you send them home, there's no feedback loop for you. You don't know that you made the person sick or poisoned them or that they got moon face or all these crazy things that happen on prednisone. And it was interesting, too, because I said, well, they're not going to take this. And also they have a wedding to go to, and so they're going to be drinking alcohol. And so they shouldn't be using either one of these things anyway today. And the guy who was the nurse goes, there's no warning against using alcohol with hydrocodone or prednisone. I said, oh, really? I said, okay. I said, well, I'll just let common sense prevail then. I mean, is that nuts?
Gosh, wow.
That's what the male nurse tried to say.
Mm-hmm.
Ginny, Carol always knew because she was treating people successfully through many years. She always knew she was right. So I think she had a basic faith that the universe would support her in the long run against these jerks. So that's another part of her indifference.
Right.
Yes, I believe it.
Right. Alcohol and prednisone. interaction. Using them together may increase the risk of gastrointestinal problems, osteoporosis, weakened immune system, and failed medication regime. So, yeah, the prednisone's going to tear up your stomach anyway. You put alcohol in there and you just burn the whole thing wide open. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. It was pretty nuts. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. What I also, it would be one thing to sit around and complain about modern medicine and what a sociopathic system it was if we did not have the alternate so readily available. And what I love about what we're doing and what you've created, Carolyn, is that you have wonderfully highly beneficial products, incredible, scientifically supported, relevant information that applies to every age group on how to work with these products, how to work with minerals, how to take care of yourself, how to move your body, how to be properly hydrated. And there's only 100% love behind everything and total support. I mean, that is like, trading a hot dog for a T-bone dinner. I mean, it's incredible.
Oh, yes. Okay, so good. I got it off my chest. Thank you, everybody. I don't like to be negative. I keep saying I wrote Death by Modern Medicine and when I had a bad day, and I got that off my chest, and people can reference that if they want to know how bad it really is. But just like Ginny said, we're on the side of the angels, and we're having a great time doing what we're doing, and we will continue to do it. So,
absolutely.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks, Ginny. I'll dive into Ginny's blog then. It comes out on Mondays. You get it if you're signed up to our RNA Reset website. So this one is titled Sidelined by Magnesium Deficiency. So it implies exercise in athletes. And Ginny goes on to say, everyone knows that exercise is good, but is it possible to get too much of a good thing? Exercise provides many health benefits, but at some point working out too hard or too long can increase the risk of magnesium and mineral depletion, engendering a whole slew of health complications. In fact, intense exercise, like training for marathons or endurance, could be an admirable endeavor, or it could put you on the sidelines. Now, we know that Ginny's had stories actually of other friends of hers who've, when they get near their 50 age mark, they just go all crazy with CrossFit and hot yoga, and they just want to maintain their youth. Or it's more like proving that you can still do it by doing these intense workouts. And what happens is they've already, as 80% of the population has, magnesium deficiency, and they lose more minerals. They don't listen to Ginny, who tells them to drink water and sea salt and take ReMag and Remite, and then they end up with symptoms. And usually the symptoms are heart-related, and that scares the bejesus out of people. They run to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, yeah, you have AFib. Here's 6 drugs. And there's the downward spiral. Now, in this blog, Ginny's giving a testimonial. An 81-year-old gentleman says, I happened to receive a copy of the Magnesium Miracle about a week ago, and upon reading it, was very, very impressed. I've ordered my first bottle of ReMag. I'm 81 years of age and kept very fit all my life by running 100 kilometers every week up and down the mountains where I live. That's a lot of kilometers. In my 50s, I started running marathons, but in my 60s, I was forced to start bike riding because my knees had worn out. In my 70s, I engaged in 4 quite challenging bike rides for various charities, get this, in Cambodia, Vietnam, Mongolia, and Myanmar. Last year, at age 80, I was starting to train for a 3,000-kilometer ride across southern Australia with a friend and a group from his church when I was hit badly by AFib. which had bothered me with occasional episodes for some 20 years, once in the middle of Mongolia. What a story. However, this episode last year didn't go away. So 20 years of magnesium deficiency right there. That's what he's saying. And nobody told him, oh, you have to take magnesium. And he's bound to, well, I shouldn't say bound, but he's a prime example of someone who could get an electrolyte imbalance that keeps the heart from beating regularly because of magnesium and mineral deficiencies. And this last episode, he says, didn't go away as had the others. And eventually it resulted in a heart disease called Idiopathic Cardiomyopathy, which I'm told is incurable. Now, we don't believe in that word. He said, I was hospitalized and now have been advised by my cardiologist to avoid any strenuous exercise. A short bike ride or a walk each day is all I'm allowed to do. I purchased magnesium powder, but the problem of diarrhea hit me badly. So when I read the book, I was quite elated to learn about ReMag and experience the relief so many people speak of. Now, he's in Australia. He just got he's just getting the ReMag, but he's of what a person, I think, requires when they start doing a new health modality. You intellectually understand why you need it, why you got the deficiency. You take the supplement that will relieve the problem, and as so many of us, we get the laxative effect with any ordinary magnesiums. He's going to do the ReMag, and he's going to do well. Now, what will happen with a person who's already thinks they're athletic and nothing bothers them, he did the magnesium powder, he's probably going to take too much too fast. And that might stir things up. It might give him the laxative effect if he takes it all in one dose. So this is where customer service comes in. We're constantly telling people, go low and slow. So Ginny continues the blog in the Magnesium Miracle book. Dr. Dean cites a study of young, healthy, well-conditioned men, noting that, quote, strenuous effort was reported to give rise to persistent magnesium deficiency and a related long-term increase in cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood sugar. The study results suggest, quote, the decline of athletes and other intensely training individuals during exertion is triggered by the detrimental effects of persistent magnesium deficiency on the cardiovascular system. Ergo, train too hard, sweat too much, lose your magnesium, and develop the magnesium deficiency symptoms that come across as AFib or heart palpitations, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and high blood sugar, for which you're given half a dozen drugs. Continuing and finishing up Ginny's blog, your personal trainer is unlikely to tell you about magnesium as part of your overall training program, but Dr. Dean will be happy to tell you all you need to know. With years of research and success behind her, I've proven, blah, 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 that an effective regime of magnesium and mineral supplementation along with the amino acids like taurine, which is in our Realign, are true game changers for any athlete, amateur or professional. So, great blog. We can send that to any athlete who asks us a question. And
hey, Carolyn.
Yeah, Bob.
A 50-year-old woman, every woman in the world has to be told something like the blog about they're going into magnesium deficiency. Mm-hmm. It's a law in our civilization. Right. And what I find odd, I talk to smart, successful women, and they're puzzled about magnesium because they just follow normal. They went to university. They know science. What is it about the simplicity of magnesium that these women don't even want to look into it. They just it sounds ridiculous, you know.
Well, you set it out already. A specialist, let me give the quote, a specialist or scientist rigorously defends his right to be ignorant of almost everything except his specialty. So when people specialize in their career, they leave their body over to the body specialist, who's a doctor. They really do. They just put it aside, and then they just listen to their doctor. They don't know they should be their own specialist of their own body.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a modern religion. You leave your salvation to your minister or your priest.
Yeah.
You know, 100 years ago or something.
Right.
Now you leave it to the modern priest.
Right. And then I hear Bob on the phone all the time with old friends, new friends, male and female, and he's just going on about, well, you should be taking our products, ReMag does this. They never listen to him. They just want to be right and make Bob, who's so smart about everything, wrong about at least one thing. It's really disheartening how these people will defend their right to be ignorant about their own body, and it's to their detriment. It's very sad.
Yeah, I mean, you've made a discovery equal to Madame Curie or somebody. This is such a cultural, powerful thing about magnesium. It's the big blind spot that's the thing that should be awarded a Nobel Prize, not the next crazy drug mutation.
Right. I know when Bob used to start saying that years ago, and Ginny sort of says it as well, how important this is. I just sort of, pretended to be humble and everything. But yes, in the past year or so, I've begun to think, yes, indeed. By inventing a non-laxative magnesium that everybody can take and everybody can saturate with, and let people build up their magnesium and get rid of all the drugs they're on for magnesium deficiency symptoms, it is a true miracle. It is truly a life-saving theory and application of theory. It's not just as many scientific discoveries and theories and papers you read that, well, we speculate that this is okay, and we tested on 10 rats, and it looks like it's going to save the world, and it never does. Anyway, let me continue on, okay, Bob? But thanks for that. So the mailbag, we've got a couple of good mailbags, so that exemplifies what we're talking about here to a certain extent. It's about how long for symptoms to subside. I'm a 67-year-old male in generally good health, 5'11", 158 pounds, which is good height-weight ratio. I exercise regularly 3 times a week. Not heavy-duty training. Only medication is allopurinol for gout. I started suffering from heart palpitations 2012, triggered due to anxiety. It was about a move that he talked about, but I don't need to repeat it. I had read about magnesium being a natural relaxer and started taking mag citrate, about 800 milligrams a day, February 2017. It reduced the incidence, but I did hit the laxative effect and still had palpitations. I started taking ReMag, Remite, and sea salt end of July 2018. Before that, my RBC test showed a MAG level of 5.9, which doesn't seem to be a serious deficiency. My potassium was normal. So yes, with MAG RBC, I say 6 to 6.5 to get yourself up in the 80th percentile, above all the rest of the people in that range who are magnesium deficient. But the RBC MAG test is not the sine qua non. It is just something that you can follow, but you have to look at your symptoms. If you still have symptoms, you are still magnesium deficient. He goes on, my palpitations have decreased, but I still have daily episodes as well as anxious feelings. which typically precipitate the episode. I've read your book on AFib as well as many of your blogs. Over these past 7 weeks, I'm up to 3 times 1.5 teaspoons. So he's on, 3, 4, 5.5 teaspoons of ReMag, or is it 4.5? What's 3 by 1.5? I can't think while I'm reading. I am actually going to my computer. 4.5 teaspoons, right? Because I used to take 4 teaspoons, and that was 1,200. So 4.5 teaspoons and 2 teaspoons twice a day of ReMite. So he's on 4 teaspoons of ReMite, so that's too much. So he's on too much ReMite, which might be giving him too much iodine. Even though I just do RDA iodine, we only use half the amount of ReMite as ReMag. So he needs 2.25 teaspoons of ReMite. So that's the first thing here to question. The other thing is, and you can hear it coming up, how long for symptoms to subside. He's only been on this higher amount for 7 weeks. And as people may remember, it took me a year and a half at 4 teaspoons to get results, or complete results, let me say that. So he says, after seeing some dramatic testimonials of heart palpitations subsiding completely relatively quickly with ReMag ReMite, I started to get a bit discouraged. That while there has been an improvement, my symptoms are not completely gone. This gentleman is probably 75% improved, but he won't admit it to himself or give himself the patience to just go with this. And that's my advice. Be patient, cut back on your ReMite. I've been on this high dose for about 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, starting with a half teaspoon per day and gradually increasing. And the other thing is, we did mention about taurine up above. It's time to get on the Realign as well. Realign has your B vitamins, which are absolutely necessary for stress, and it's got the taurine, that's for the heart and many other things. It's our sulfur-based amino acids, and the sulfur is important. And so he says, yes, am I just being impatient? Yes. What is the typical time period for complete saturation so symptoms disappear? Well, the symptoms are disappearing, but complete disappearance, we are talking about a year. I really think it has to be a year. Go back over CB's story in the AFib book and just be grateful, affirm how far you've come. Look at how long it's taken you to get magnesium deficient, and that your body was protecting you for 20 years before it got severe enough for you to really pay attention. And also, what is the maximum dosage? Yes, and he says, I know you were on 1,200 milligrams. I've exceeded that with no laxative effect. Can I continue to increase until either a laxative effect hits or my symptoms subside? No, it's good to stay at 4.5 teaspoons is fine, because then you will put out your other minerals, put them at a balance, and the ReMite should only be 2.25 teaspoons a day. Get on the Realign, and also the restructure is going to be helpful, and the RNA drops too. The RNA drops will help with a little bit of detachment so that you're not so anxious. You've probably gotten into a bit of hypervigilance. Hypervigilance can come when you're anxious while you're waiting for your next AFib episode. So you bring it on with your anxiety, which is what you don't want. So the RNA drops can really help with a bit of detachment. He's asking, can magnesium also reduce uric acid so I can get off the allopurinol as well? Well, I wouldn't tell you to do that, but there is a 2015 study that shows that having adequate magnesium is associated with lower and healthier levels of uric acid, and thus potentially lowering the risk of gout. So yes, you're on a good trajectory for that as well. So that's a very good mailbag. There's another one. I'll try to make it quicker. Just finished rereading Magnesium Miracle 2nd edition. I've been taking supplements and exercising for 40-plus years. Suddenly, about 4 months ago, after I would run a couple of miles, my heart rate would get stuck in the 90s with quite a few PACs, premature atrial contractions. Now, you can't say that it's sudden. What can happen is people can be developing this and not be symptomatic, and then they become symptomatic. My 12-lead ECG was good. My calcium scan was clean, so there's no calcification. Bought your book, bought ReMag, Remite. Bottom line, to keep my heart rate in the 50s and 60s with 0 PACs, I put 1,200 milligrams of ReMag, so that's your 4 teaspoons. 2 teaspoons of Remite, yeah, that's a good amount. And 700 milligrams of potassium in a liter of distilled water. I drink that throughout my workout and do fine. So he needs to do spring water, and sea salt. Distilled water has nothing in it. So you need the sea salt minerals as well. It seems if I don't drink a couple of liters of this mixture a day, my heart rate gets stuck around 96. I've been taking ReMag, Remite, plus my usual supplements for 2 months now. So too short of time, not enough sea salt, and the right amounts of ReMag, Remite. I'm 64, been taking testosterone for 30 years. I also take quite a few supplements for my general health and have been taking them for decades. They're too numerous to list. Okay, so there's the problem there, where a person who comes to us with a heart symptoms and already on probably a dozen supplements and saying, I still want to take my dozen supplements, even though they didn't help me. The ReMag, Remite are helping, but I'm a bit stuck. So too early on to give up on the ReMag, Remite, and it is definitely time to wean off the other supplements, because what happens with these other supplements is you may be getting too many antioxidants and stopping natural oxidation in the body, giving your body too many directions with all these different supplements. He's saying, are there supplements to take in conjunction with ReMag and Remite? Yes. Realign for your taurine and your Bs, and Restructure and RNA drops. It's a full protocol. If you're eating calcium-rich foods, you don't have to take Recalcia. He says, I've heard about vitamin C and boron. Well, boron is in the Remite. Vitamin C, yes. Actually, both these gentlemen should look at my blog, Dr. Dean Supplement Recommendations. I absolutely recommend vitamin C. We're coming out with our own food-based vitamin C within the next few months. B6 is he's asking about. That is in our Realign. And he says his RBC magnesium was at 5.5, then 4.9, and he says he's struggling to get it up in the 6 range. How can I get it up? That's not as much an issue as your symptoms, and RBC is not the definitive test. The drop from 5.5 down to 4.9, we could probably go over what happened. There was more stress. Something will shift. And the MAG RBC test, I think, is just good to follow your levels and correlate it with what you're taking and the stress and the burn of your magnesium. So then he says, hopefully it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, am I going to become a Dr. Dean ReMag lifetime customer now? I hope so, because magnesium is like food. Food doesn't have magnesium, so you take ReMag for its 100% absorption. Am I going to need such massive amounts of magnesium for months, years, probably months? After I was on 4 teaspoons, and I really should have kept track, but I keep saying yes. I was on it for about a year, the 4 teaspoons. I started taking ReMag, then I only needed 3 teaspoons of ReMag. Then after a year and a half, I only needed 2 teaspoons and then 1. And now I bounce between 1 and 1.5 teaspoons. So I'm just on the RDA of magnesium. Am I going to need massive amounts for months, years, or does bone storage reach homeostasis? Bone and muscle storage reaches homeostasis. Then, as I do now, if I were to take 2 or 3 teaspoons of ReMag, I'd get the laxative effect because I'm overloaded. And he mentions, as the other customer did, how I needed 1,200 milligrams in the beginning of my magnesium saturation. So there's that. And then a quick one, someone saying, please address sulfur deficiency. I was listening to a talk show and learned that humans are made up of 3 components, water, sulfur, and salt. No, they're made up of more than that. But the sulfur, we definitely are tuned into that. Our sulfur amino acids, the taurine and methionine and reline provide the sulfur, and also you're eating sulfur-rich foods every day if you're eating your cruciferous vegetables and eggs, for example, onions, the broccoli, Brussels sprouts. So you get your sulfur in your food and your reline. So, Ginny, I've used up almost the whole hour. I'm proud of myself, but I'm sure people want to talk to us or chat with us. So over to you, Ginny.
Okay, excellent. Wondering. Got a couple questions on the chat line, but I do wonder if there's anybody who does want to talk to Dr. Dean tonight. There always are. If you're on the phone with me now or if you've got to call in, 602-666-6027 is the number to call into the station. And then when you get to the station, you've got to hit *5 on your keypad. *5 will raise your hand in my studio board and let me know that you're here to talk to Dr. Dean. Otherwise, you're going to be on mute and we won't get to chitty-chat. So please, again, hit *5 on the keypad and let me know you're here, and then I will put you on the line with Dr. Dean. And so far, I don't have anybody doing that, Carolyn, so I will ask you a couple of questions off the chat line, and then maybe we'll have some callers in this next hour. One of the questions is from Ryan. He says, I'm wondering about, what about a hypermobile sacroiliac? Yeah,
sacroiliac.
Sacroiliac joint. And I said, okay, what do you mean? Do you have one? What is your current protocol? And he said, yes, I've had one for close to 3 years. I have been to massage therapy and chiropractors. I've been on the drop since 2011 and magnesium since you started selling it. So he said, it's literally a pain in my ass. I just wonder if Dr. Dean has come across this in her years of service.
Right, that type of thing where there's a whole hypermobile attachment of the sacrum to the iliac joint over on the hip side. Some people will use something called pryolotherapy, P-R-Y-L-O therapy. It's an injection, sometimes of prolotherapy, P-R-O-L-O therapy, injection of even ascorbic acid into a hypermobile joint to kind of give a natural scarring of the area to try to irritate the joint to tighten it up. That might be the best thing, although when I think of our chiropractor who does myofascial release, he would probably say that the muscles around the sacrum and the hip could be so tense that they're pulling that joint apart a little bit too much, and that he would work on the muscles. So Ryan, kind of dig your knuckles into the area above and below the sacroiliac, and if they're very tense, it could be that they're pulling the joint. And if not so much that, because your masseuse and your chiropractor should have been able to address that, then look up prolotherapy. So there, prolotherapy, P-R-O-L-O therapy.
Very good. Excellent. Wonderful. Excellent. Okay, we have a question coming in from, I learned something new every week. Every single week. Denise writes in, this is my first time writing a message. Can you speak on reversing AFib and how to reverse it? I don't want to continue to take warfarin and metoprolol.
Well, we're not going to tell you to stop it right off the bat. And I do have a full booklet written about it. You may not know, Denise. And we don't know if your AFib is due to magnesium deficiency, but it's certainly something that can help, if not reverse the symptoms if they are related to deficiency. So I'm just going to tell you to read the book, and then when you read the book, you'll have pointed questions for us. And listening to the radio show, looking at the radio show archives at drcarolyndeanlive.com, where you'll also find the free AFib book. Listen to the archives, type in AFib, and see the hundreds of times I've already spoken about it. We're up to the top of the hour, so that's how I'll leave it for now. Okay, Denise?
Let me just ask you this, though, Carolyn. If we can't talk about AFib, but we can talk about magnesium deficiency. And if her AFib is from magnesium deficiency, we are only recommending ReMag for that, Denise. So you've got to consider using ReMag and ReMite. And the protocol is spelled out in the book, and I sent the link to you here in the chat line. And you can always email support at rnareset.com for more questions as you have more questions. But just magnesium alone doesn't cut it. You know, you've got to really have the ReMag because of its absorption and these kinds of things. Okay?
Right. Yeah, good point, Ginny, about that. Let me just elaborate. You will hear on the show, Denise, people will say, I tried this, that, and the other magnesium. I got the laxative effect. It didn't really totally improve my situation. And then I turn to ReMag. And what happens with ReMag is to stabilize the ionic form of magnesium from magnesium chloride. And being a stable ion, it can be 100% absorbed at the cellular level. So you have the opportunity to fully saturate your body with magnesium and get relief of magnesium deficiency symptoms. Done.
Excellent. And then you'll hear these amazing testimonials like the one that Vicki just typed in. I just want to make a comment. I've been on ReMag for a year, ReMite for about 8 months, and Pico Silver since July. I replaced 6 metal-infused crowns, and my biological dentist said, you have the healthiest gum tissue I've seen in all my 40 years of dentistry. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, Dr. Dean. Oh, wow.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, yes, it's body-wide, the impact of these products. It goes through the whole body. So it's not just limited to, getting AFib under control or whatever. You're just going to feel fantastic no matter what. Now, after the top of the hour, we're going to come back and answer Mary's question. Who's talking, Carolyn? And she says, Dr. Dean and Ginny, I have low vitamin D, DHEA, and estrogen. I am 50. I've gained weight, and I feel sad about the inability to lose weight no matter what. Please help. So we'll talk we'll answer Mary's question on the way back in the next hour. And also, if you do have a question or comment for Dr. Dean and would like to talk to her, 602-666-6027. We'll take questions next hour, and we'll also do our mailbag, which is always a lot of fun. So this is Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on AchieveRadio.com, and we'll be right back as soon as we take this brief studio break. Thank you.
We'll be back with Hour 2 of Live with Dr. We'll be back with Hour 2 of Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean, along with host Ginny Gunther, after this brief station break. You can also get updates and resources online by visiting drcarolyndean.com.
AchieveRadio.com.
You can climb floors and then worlds show up. You can go downstairs and worlds disappear. You can go downstairs up on the rooftop, and you open the door and take a step, and you go, I'm on the rooftop. Wait a minute, I better pay attention. So that becomes a fun thing. So that's why we have to come back and say this: relax and allow, soften it up, get your foot off the gas, don't slam on the brakes, just let it coast where you want it to go. Soften, be easy about all this, and stop making a great big huge thing out of great big nothingnesses, because the nothingnesses are serving you very well. You like this blissful place of not caring, because now you care so much about everything that you've got yourself in a position where you don't really care about anything. Good. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. We are happily, easily ready for more in your experience.
Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is AchieveRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AchieveRadio.
Here we go now. Go to the Carolyn. Here we go now. Here we go now. The wellness scene with Dr. D. Here we go now. Here we go now. Go to the Carolyn. The wellness with Dr. D.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2, Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on AchieveRadio.com. This is Ginny Gunther, also known as Ginny Almighty, broadcasting from a very soggy North Carolina. Thank you to all of our customers who have literally flooded our customer service emails and phone calls asking, and Tom just popping up on the chat line, how is Mooresville, North Carolina warehouse coping with Florence? Everything here is A-okay. We were far enough inland that everything's all right, and we are able to dispatch. We were able to meet our shipments on Friday. We were able to get everything out today, so that's all good. But North Carolina is still in a little bit of a mess, and I think it's going to be that way for a while, and I think the death toll now is up to 31 people, and our precious little Wilmington, where my husband's daughter went to college and things like that, is just toast, just trashed. So, yeah, what is the old commercial about Mother Nature, right? Yeah, so they can't get anybody in or out, and I-95 is still closed. There's a lot of stuff that's still going on, but it finally stopped raining. Amen. So that's the progress. But yeah, all of our customers were very sweet.
Right. Yeah, it's the biblical flood for these people. It's just, it's quite horrible. But the sky may fall, but it's not going to fall on us. And that may sound selfish, but you can extend that greeting to anyone you know. The sky may fall, but it won't fall on Maui. It won't fall on Warehouse or Mooresville. We forgot to put Wilmington into the little prayer. Darn.
Did forget a little bit about Wilmington. That's kind of a bummer, yeah. But, biblical proportion rains. Yes, they say that North Carolina got 10 trillion tons of water, 10 trillion gallons of water, which was the equivalent to the entire state being covered in 10 inches of water.
Oh, my goodness. So the water tables will be filled up. We probably require this water for our future. And just like horrible things can lead to good things, and we still, I can't imagine what people are going to do, because we still have to think of them drying out their houses, all the mold that's going to happen. So people have to be very careful now about the mold, and the cooler weather is coming. So, yeah, there's a lot still to be done, a lot. But, I was very impressed by how the government handled the whole catastrophe. They were just on it. I follow Trump's Twitter just to keep. It's the only way I've ever been able to keep up on what the government's doing, and it is incredible what FEMA has been doing. All these, it looks like a lot of young soldiers and workers out there in their gear, just doing everything they can to help out. What's your experience with that? Have you been following that at all, Ginny?
Oh, yeah, it is really amazing how organized everybody has been down here. I mean, really, and there are power company linesmen here from 37 different states and Canada.
Wow,
yeah.
Awesome.
37, and there's still over a quarter of a million people who are out of power. So the aid and the sheer force of people who came down here, and all the determined contributors, and of course they have the wonderful, I'm going to call them the wrong thing, but I think they're the Cajun
Navy.
No, yeah, the Cajun Navy. They've been down, and they've been on their boats and all the heroic acts and things like that. I mean, it's very, very touching. But there's still a lot to do. So, but anyway, we're great, everybody. Thank you for asking. So sweet. We care for our customers, and then there was an outpouring of care and concern for our situation and our staff, and make sure everybody was okay, and we all are okay. And so, thank you for that. That was very, very sweet. Very sweet.
Wonderful.
Okay, so Nancy's typing in, and she's saying, thank you for the information about Ryan's issues in the low back and offering prolotherapy, because I think it may be my issue as well, at least closely resembling what he said. I have some chronic issues in the low spine, L3, 4, and 5, little material between those discs, and get pain in the left groin area and tender muscles in the soft area of the hip. For me, it goes way back to times when I was pregnant, and now I understand things likely didn't heal appropriately and completely. I had chiropractor issues all my life since then, chiropractic issues. Now that I'm more educated, I understand things about my body. It's much better now, but still weak and reactive place. I'm 81. My nutrition program has helped many internal issues heal and be less annoying or gone, along with the complement formulas as well, has added everything. Sometimes I feel like there is still more I could do even at my age, more fine-tuning.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, and the Egoscue therapy can help if to do things on your own. The EGOSCUE, you may have heard me talking about that, Nancy. There's a tower you can get that you lie in it with your feet up, elevated in this little rack, and then you move them down the rack, and that puts a passive stretch on the legs and low back to help alignment, because often, like I was saying to Ryan, if the muscles around an area are either too tight or too loose, then they pull things out of alignment, and that causes the rubbing and the pain. And if you can get back alignment, that can be very helpful. Actually, that may help your sacroiliac as well, Ryan, is getting Egoscue Tower, Egoscue. I have one. I use it a lot, what can I say, regularly for a long time, and I changed outward turning left foot into a very nice forward pointed left foot, so I don't have a duck walk anymore, and that certainly helped my alignment. Okay, so we had a question about low vitamin D, DHEA, and estrogen, and weight gain. Who's that from?
That's from Mary. Yep, and she just said that she had gained weight. She was feeling frustrated about the inability to lose it, no matter what. Mary, you didn't say if you were on the formulas and which ones you're taking, if you're using the ReMag, ReMite, or anything, and I can see you're right at your keyboard. So if you could just type me real quick and just let me know if you're using any of the formulas or if this is the first time you've heard about Dr. Dean.
Right. Yeah, and maybe while she's writing in, I could preamble here, because what's happening, a lot of allopathic doctors are doing vitamin D levels. They've sort of switched from recommending calcium because it's getting a bad press, because women especially who take calcium supplements are at a higher risk for heart disease, because calcium doesn't fully absorb, and what doesn't absorb gives you constipation or precipitates in soft tissues, and is causing a lot of these strange symptoms in a person's body, calcification. And so they move to vitamin D as the next sexy supplement. So they'll do these levels of vitamin D. And when a person says low vitamin D, I don't know what that means, because my vitamin D normal is at the very low end of the vitamin D. First of all, they're testing inactive vitamin D. It isn't even the active kind, and I don't know what that means. And secondly, vitamin D is a hormone, so you can't look at it as you would a supplement where you think, oh, well, let's take high amounts of this vitamin, because if your body's giving you a low reading of vitamin D, which is a hormone, it implies that you don't need that hormone at this point. There's a feedback mechanism in the body. When you don't need a hormone, it will just register low. I know it's a little bit complex. What you do is Google my name and vitamin D and see the bigger picture that I'm talking about. So if you've got low normal vitamin D, that should be okay. Now, your doctor may be a little bit in the alternatives measuring DHEA, and that you can improve simply by putting magnesium, the ReMag lotion on your skin, because there are magnesium there's DHEA receptors in the skin that can be influenced by transdermal magnesium. That's what a doctor, good grief, what's his name? That's what Dr. Sheely found in his studies. Measuring estrogen, again, I don't know what your age is, Mary, but over time estrogen can be lowered, but it's more important to know the balance of your estrogen and progesterone, for example. Weight gain, we work on that with our ketogenic diet. You can lose the weight you want by putting yourself into a fat-burning mode, which means you really limit the carbohydrates you take in, because as soon as you eat carbohydrates, the body just takes the easy way out and metabolizes the carbohydrates and leaves the fat alone. And the fat is stored for a rainy day. So you've got to make your days, bad metaphor, you've got to lower your carbs so that you're fat burning as much as you want. And also intermittent fasting or some fasting is very helpful. I'm on the second day of at least a monthly fast that I do 2 or 3 days. And I think it's good for the body to do that. I'm not recommending it necessarily for everybody, but that's what I'm playing with right now. I have a book, what is it, Reset Your Ideal Weight, where I go into all this. So has Mary gotten back to us, Ginny?
Yes, she says, wait a minute, where are we here? Sorry. She's not on the formulas at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's okay. You can go to the books at drcarolyndeanlive.com, get the weight loss book, Google, as I said, about vitamin D, because if you're see what'll happen is doctors will measure what's hot, what's current. But what about measuring magnesium? I don't see you saying you have that done. And what about measuring what else? What are we interested in? All the different minerals. And I do tell people about doing the magnesium RBC test because there's so many customers that come to us on medications, and I want them to know what their magnesium is and give themselves some validation of taking the ReMag, of course. But what I've done with the formulas is just made them, especially the ReMite, in the balance of the way everybody needs it. And you're not going to take a high amount of any of our dietary supplements for a short time and then be done with it. These are long-term commitments to your minerals, and in the case of Realign, to your methylated B vitamins that everybody needs. And the vitamin C, we've always recommended food-based vitamin C. We're going to make our own now so that you can have full access to it. So there are some very basic things that everybody requires. And to go off and think, well, if I take DHEA, everything will be fine. Or if my estrogen's low, maybe if I take that. No, you're forgetting the progesterone. So do I have a Total Body Meltdown book, Ginny, or is that what I put in one of the other booklets?
Well, you do have the Total Body Reset is in mostly the thyroid book. The meltdown part, it was with the thyroid book.
Right.
And, yeah, but we are – go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You do have a great series that you did with C.J. Liu on hormones that I always like to send customers. So, Mary, if you email me through support, SUPPORT, at rnereset.com and just write hormone video in the subject line, I'll know what you're talking about, and I will respond to you and send you these videos. They're very good. It's an interview Carolyn did a couple of years ago, but it goes through the whole thing. And this whole issue that they try to always balance out about DHEA and estrogen and progesterone and all that, and, all this business, Carolyn's got it all laid out. Does this work if you're in menopause, Mary asks?
Oh, yes. When you look at the menopausal symptoms, 80% of them are magnesium deficiency symptoms. So, in fact, a lot of women, when they hit menopause, are just expressing their magnesium deficiency. So, ReMag is definitely the place to start. And like Ginny said, it is ReMag. It's our product, of course, and it's the one we're definitely promoting, but it is because over the many years that I recommended the magnesium citrates, and I still recommend that and Epsom salts, you'll find in order to get rid of your symptoms or get to saturation, you'll get the laxative effect long before you get what we used to call the therapeutic effect, but the FDA doesn't like us pretending that ReMag is a drug. So to get the saturation effect, you really require ReMag.
Right. And the other thing is Carolyn did a great webinar on the thyroid, and she also says that she's got low thyroid. So I will put the link to the thyroid right here in this the chat line. This is the link to the webinar, and I think that would be a great place for you to go, Mary, as well. And, Mary, feel free to just pick up the phone and call and talk to Carolyn. She doesn't bite. She's great to talk to. She's got great intuition and stuff. And if you want to talk to her directly, it's 602-666-6027. That's 602-666-6027. Okay, very good. So let me know, like I said, Mary, if you want to call and chitty chat. But I think so far you've got great information. And Dr. Dean's been very good in answering that for you. And then when you get on our YouTube to watch that thyroid video, there's a whole other one on the ketogenic diet that you can look at too, called Reset Your Ideal Weight. That'll help. What does Dr. Dean think about the Eat for Your Blood Type by Dr. Pito Diadamo?
Diadamo.
Okay. Very good, yeah.
Yeah. Eat right for your blood type. Well, that was the first diet that I actually talked about in my practice, and what I based my diet on. I'm just typing in something here. So, Diadamo, the senior, is Peter the son? There's father and son team, and let me look that up. And the son has taken over from the father and kind of expanded the whole diet. So in the beginning, it was eat right for your blood type. O's needed more protein than A's. A's could do a vegetarian diet. AB's were similarly kind of a vegetarian bent. The B's are between protein and vegetarian. Now, it was a vast generalization. When I did a little survey in my health club way back in the day in Toronto, and I asked people their blood type and what their exercise schedule was, I didn't find any correlation between diet and blood type. And what I began to register is that healthy people can kind of eat whatever they want until they get unhealthy. And what I would do in my practice is if people came in and they expressed unhealthy symptoms, I would say, what's your blood type? And if they were eating apart or away from their blood type, like if someone was an O blood group and they were being a vegetarian, they were fatigued and they had gum disease and obvious lack of protein symptoms, I would say, well, why don't you try eating protein? And if they weren't fanatic about their vegetarianism and wanted to get healthy, they would start eating protein and they would feel better. And similarly with an O blood type, with an O blood type who, was eating as a vegetarian, I tell them to eat protein. If they were A blood type and eating as an O, in other words, a so-called vegetarian, eating a lot of meat and really overloading their system with cheeses, dairy products, etc., I'd say, well, why don't you add more vegetables and see how you feel, and they would feel better. So what I ended up realizing was most people can eat some protein and a whole bunch of vegetables and everybody will feel fine. And I modified my diet advice a little bit with the yeast overgrowth that I was seeing everywhere. So I would put people on a yeast diet, and that was mainly avoid sugar, wheat, and dairy. Over the years, avoiding wheat became avoid gluten. The wheats and the gluten grains just became so hybridized, and people just weren't digesting them. And they were eating so many servings of grains a day that their body was just overloaded. So the yeast diet, it became kind of protein and vegetables, same as what I kind of grew into with the blood type diet. The keto diet is just an extension of the yeast diet, except even less carbs and more fats. And that's what I think is going to help people lose weight, and the whole diabetic issue out there is just get people off the poison that's causing too much insulin to be shunted out of the pancreas. When you're eating carbs, the insulin comes out to push the glucose from the carbs into the cells, but at the same time, half of that glucose is going into fat storage. So insulin makes fat. So you want, as much as possible, not to release insulin. Keep your diet such that you're eating so few carbs. You're not creating insulin, and you're not building up fat stores. So, yes, I do know a lot about Eat Right for your blood type. What is your question?
I think the question is, what do you think about it? And that's what you said what you thought.
Yeah. Okay. I did.
Very good. Okay, Tom is writing in and says, what is up with all the complicated words tonight? Tom, Ginny, can you ask Dr. Dean about, I may have to spell this, Carolyn. It's nystagmus.
Oh, yeah, it's an eye condition. Nystagmus, you got it.
Okay, all right. So I think he just wants to know what to do about it, maybe, or he didn't give me too many.
Yeah, come on, folks, just to say, what do you think about? I mean, I could write a book about all of it. Tell me what you want to know.
Could you comment on nystagmus and if it could be related to magnesium deficiency?
Well, yeah, so let's look at the definition of nystagmus. It's a rapid involuntary movement of the eyes. And from my remembrance of neurology, it's often related to some sort of brain issue, but let's see what the American Academy of Ophthalmology says. Condition where the eyes move rapidly and uncontrollably. They can move side to side, up and down, and in a circle. Now, usually, people aren't going around with their eyes doing that. Nystagmus is evoked when a doctor says, look to the side, and you force your eyes to the left, and then nystagmus will happen where as you're looking to the left, your eyes sort of bounce a little bit back to the right, just a tiny bit, and back to the left. Same with up and down. There's a congenital type, they say. There's an acquired type, usually is included with serious mental conditions, blah, blah, blah. Now, what I think, there's nystagmus, and then there's irregularity of the curvature of the cornea. I have a little bit of that, the astigmatism. So, but nystagmus is more related to the muscles of the eye. So I think what Tom is getting at is there something where the muscles of the eye could be involved with nystagmus, and I'm sure they can. If nystagmus turns out to be like an eye twitch, then that can definitely implicate magnesium and magnesium deficiency. So I don't know what more to say about that without just going on and on and on. I'm done.
Very good. Excellent. Okay, wonderful. Okay, and we have one or two questions here. Nancy gave a follow-up statement, Carolyn, when you talked to her about the Egoscue. I read about it years ago, but I never put serious attention to considering it. My knowledge of everything about self-care and just knowing things has escalated. So a revisit of that subject is good. And then thanks, Ginny, for the update about the weather. Also, Dr. Dean, did your area get a lot of rain from the hurricanes? I think you would have been traveling during some of that time.
Right, not so much. One side of Maui Island got a lot of rain. We get, I think, the second highest level of rainfall in the world on West Maui Mountain. And that makes us we're not waterlogged, but water sufficient. We're very fortunate to have a lot of water in Maui, but where we live, Kihei, Wailea, nothing. And both hurricanes, there were parts of Big Island that got 40 inches and got swamped out, but not much wind damage, and just some areas were waterlogged. Mm. Yeah, interesting times with the rains and the winds.
Absolutely. Okay, Tom wrote back and said, I had vertigo bouts and with BPV, but now it just seems to occur periodically. Have just received my ReMag and ReMite today and hope it will help. Hoped it would help. DP is in Paul, disabling positional vertigo. Right. Yeah, sometimes, Tom, that can be the little calcifications in the ears. The hair cells in the ears can develop little calcifications, and I don't know how hard that would be for magnesium, the ReMag, to dissolve, but we've had a number of people, not necessarily with the DPV, but with vertigo symptoms, say that when they get on their water and sea salt, they are no longer dehydrated. When they get on their ReMag and ReMite, that their vertigo calms down. So you'll have to keep us posted, Tom. Okay, excellent. Vicki asked if you could repeat what you did to help your duck feet alignment, but Vicki, I'm just going to ask you to listen to the archive. It's right here at the radio station, and you can get that information quickly and easily because we've got mailbag things and things to do. And then Jean typed in, yay, regarding your upcoming vitamin C. Are there any updates on the release of your probiotic?
Same timing, a few months. We're in the testing stages right now, so it's imminent.
Very good. Excellent. Okay, Carolyn, nobody's one on the phone raising their hand to speak to you. They must be just enjoying the treasury of your wisdom. Do you have mailbag things that you want to share?
Oh, I have so much. We have 2 months of blogs, Jenny. 2 months of blogs.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. Well, let me take some emails from our mailbag about the blogs. I did one on Protandem. Do you remember me talking about that?
No.
Protandem is multi-level marketing product.
I do remember that. Yes, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I do remember talking about that, but I didn't talk about this response. Now, Protandem, it's got milk thistle, which is great for the liver, Bacapa, which I don't know, it's an Indian herb, ashwagandha, which is another Indian herb, green tea, and turmeric. Turmeric's an anti-inflammatory, and they say it works because it's high in magnesium. I don't know that for sure. They're not organic. I do have a lot of reservations about inorganic herbal products because they could have all manner of herbicides and pesticides on them, and nobody would know. They don't measure them. So, okay, this person wrote in and said that John Barron, B-A-R-R-O-N, wrote about antioxidants, because I think in the Protandem blog I said, look, you're taking all these herbs every day, they're antioxidants, how can that be a good thing to take so many antioxidants? And so this blog by John J.O.N. Barron said, the blood can only hold a certain amount of antioxidants, and after that level is reached, the blood will reject any more you try to put in. So if you hit your quota with too much of one type of antioxidant, it will refuse to accept others that you may need as well. I understand from John's newsletter that the body makes its own antioxidants, including the one mentioned in Protandim called superoxide dismutase. If the body makes its own, that's pretty much what home cooking is about, and I prefer home cooking over eating takeaway. Keep up the good work and educating into every nook and cranny. So yeah, I thought that was good, because in my mind was this whole over antioxidant problem, and this is what we said to one of our mailbaggers today, is just quit taking all these supplements. You came to us on a couple dozen supplements. You feel better right away on ReMag and ReMite, so why keep taking the supplements? Usually it's just people are scared to stop, or they think by taking supplements somehow that's insurance, but it may be too many antioxidants. Polypharmacy in the elderly was a blog. A customer wrote in. She said, I understand this completely. Thank you for verifying. My mother experienced this, and we found a new doctor who immediately took all her pills, a lap full, and dumped them in the garbage. I'll never forget that, and how smart that doctor was. So that was nice. Then there's something in Science Daily. Oh yes. Oh, this is quite crazy, Ginny. In Science Daily, I think I'm blogging on this. Medical researchers now posit that chronic disease is essentially the consequence of the natural healing cycle becoming blocked, specifically by disruptions at the metabolic and cellular levels. And when I read it, it's they're saying chronic diseases are driven by metabolic dysfunction. They did a study on rats, and well, they did the rat study, and then actually they did a study on autistic kids where they blocked their ATP production. Now, ATP is the primo necessary substance in your body, adenosine triphosphate, to make energy. It's the energy molecule that goes in everything and does everything in your body. So they block that, I guess, because they thought that if the metabolic pathways are off kilter, let's just kill them and see how the body adapts. And when they blocked the ATP, the kids, I think the kids' bodies were so distracted because of the emergency of blocking the ATP. I think what will happen is the body will just frantically make a whole herd of ATP to overcome the block. And apparently the kids kind of woke up and had better behavior, etc., for the duration of the drug in their body. And what's crazy is that if ATP is not balanced and the healing doesn't complete, then what do? You give the body the building blocks for the ATP, which is magnesium. How many times have I said that the Krebs cycle that makes ATP requires magnesium in 6 of its 8 steps? So just give the building blocks. Don't kill the substance to try to get a reaction. It's so much like the shock therapies that are popular now, the cryotherapy, the cold shock, and the heat shock, saunas and the individual saunas and the hot yoga. What they do is shock the body. Now, just think of the word shock. If you've been under stress, then you've been under shock. So why would you want to shock your body more? And why they do it, and you'll read some of these papers about it, they say, well, the stressing the body in this way by low-calorie diets, cold shock, heat shock, drives up certain hormones in the body, like human growth hormone, and they just revel in this. They say, it's so exciting, all these blood tests are elevated, and that's what we want. But they don't even give any consideration to the fact that the more you shock and block the body, the more the body has to work to create new substances, and you're not giving it any of the building blocks. What we're doing consistently and constantly with the Complete One formulas is giving you all the building blocks you require for for the structure and function of your body. That's what the FDA will let us say, giving you everything for the structure and function of your body. So there. So I'm going to stop for a minute to see if Ginny has any input or chats before I continue on.
Okay, very good. Yes, we had a couple things coming through. One of the things that Belinda's asking, a question I've been meaning to ask since Prescript Assist has been discontinued, does Dr. Dean have another probiotic that she uses or one she can recommend?
We have an FAQ on that, don't we, Ginny? It's you try to get a soil-based probiotic. They're coming and going a lot lately, but you can email into support@rnareset.com because we have to stay on top of what's out there and available. So
yes, we do. And then Belinda, Dr. Dean's product will be out before the end of the year. So you're just looking at something for the next month or two, and hopefully we'll have something out late November. So we're on top of it. Let's see. Marv typed in and said that she has where did it go? I was diagnosed with thyroid nodule. For the life of me, my doctor is convincing me it isn't much to worry about. I am still doing my minerals, but for the past 2 weeks I feel horrible. My throat has me in misery. My friend has advised me to ask the doctor to have a fine needle aspiration done. And then she says, can you please explain what this is for me? But then I asked her when was she diagnosed, and she wrote back to me, and she didn't tell me when she was diagnosed, but she said, I also forgot to ask Dr. Dean if this small nodule can affect my hormones. Both ears feel like a frying sound, which is annoying and stressful.
Ears feel like what, hon?
A frying sound.
I think you better change doctors and find endocrinologists. Yes, a thyroid nodule should be aspirated. They will just put a tiny needle in a nodule and pull out a few cells and then see whether the nodule, most thyroid nodules are totally benign, but if you've got several, then the body is trying to do something. It implies that you're deficient in minerals. And how much ReMag are you taking, for example? But, yeah, there's something going on there. You really should get this checked out.
Okay, very good. John types in, can Dr. Dean elaborate on what hypervigilance is and how the RNA drops can help?
Well, hypervigilance is just someone being kind of fearful all the time and vigilant about their surroundings. It's like actually being prey. There's prey and there's predators. And so if you're in a prey stance, you're afraid of everybody and everything, and you don't sleep deeply. Mothers get into hypervigilance when they have children, when they have their baby, and you hear about they're just aware of any little change in a sound. And with constant hypervigilance, someone can lower their adrenals, use up their adrenaline too quickly. You can jump at the sound of a tire bursting or think it's a gunshot, et cetera, et cetera. And the RNA drops, yes, we don't have a study on this, but what we've always said about the RNA drops is they seem to heighten a person's bliss state. And I called it detachment earlier, but kind of the bliss state that makes them feel like they're taken care of. And we have no way of proving that, but we know that many people have reported this. But what you can start with is the Bach flower remedies. There's aspen and mimulus, which are for fears. One is for known fears and one is for unknown fears. So that's sort of a quickie on hypervigilance, John.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Excellent. And I will say, Carolyn, we don't have any studies, but we do have the work that we did with the Zyto machine on the RNA drops a couple of years ago. And what they were shown through working with the Zyto machine is that they do balance out of balance stressors. So those are some of the unknown things that just kind of seem to make people ping. So to your point about, they just calm people down or they get access to more of their bliss state is perfect. But there is some documentation, and that's a radio show we did on that. If you want to send the email to support at RNA Reset, I'll send you the link to that. Okay, let's see. Super Dougie says, thanks for covering so many places today. I've been feeling where to pick up my life these days and hadn't turned on your show until tonight and realized I hadn't taken any of Dr. Dean's product. Geez, no wonder I felt so out of odds. Been off everything for 3 or 4 weeks. Oh, Super Dougie, no, we can't. 3 or 4 weeks, goodness gracious, what's going on there? No, that's not allowed.
Well, Super Dougie did the experiment. You go off your whatever diet or dietary supplements, and you see how you feel. And he feels yucky, so now he's reinforced to get back on them. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's fine for Carolyn's more gracious than I am. I'm like, what are you doing? That's crazy. Are you nuts? Anyway, okay. Okay, so we're all caught up, Carolyn.
Excellent. Okay, Facebook testimonial. This person, I don't know, male or female, says, I drink ReMite and ReMag every day. I love it. My body's functioning at 150%, and I feel superhuman. Better sleep, awesome workout recovery, energy levels are up during the day, and my cardiovascular health is superb. One of the best essential supplements out in the market. It truly is a miracle product. Then there's something about organic versus inorganic minerals. And someone must have emailed me and said, one of our customers who said, I had this comment on my YouTube channel, so this customer has a YouTube channel, and would love to get your quick comment about trace minerals and their absorption. Is he correct or not? So the comment is, inorganic minerals are useless in the body due to positive charge. And so I say all minerals are inorganic. They are dirt and rocks. They can't be defined as organic. In chemistry and mineralogy, an organic mineral is a mineral that contains carbon. However, some simple compounds involving carbon are classified as inorganic. Some organic minerals are composed of hydrocarbons, while others are salts of organic acids, as well as some miscellaneous compounds like urea. So it gets kind of complicated. The definition of organic is just if you have carbon involved. It's a simple chemistry definition. So I say that was a website definition. So I say people may call a chelated mineral an organic mineral, but that's, again, not the precise definition of organic. Chelated minerals are minerals that have been combined chemically with amino acids to form complexes. These amino acids will have carbon atoms, but it's not part of the mineral, just attached to the mineral. The absorption of minerals happens, this person is saying, inorganic minerals won't be absorbed. So I'm continuing on that The absorption of minerals happens when there is an ion of the mineral available to the cell ion channels. In order for a plant chelated mineral to be absorbed, the body has to break off that amino acid in a chemical reaction. Magnesium is extremely reactive and will immediately bind up to another substance in the body, making the ion of magnesium unavailable for absorption. The beauty of our ReMag is that it is a stabilized ion of magnesium, allowing complete absorption. And the comment continues, organic minerals are negatively charged and readily available. That's not true. As noted above, organic minerals are chelated minerals. And inorganic minerals can be either positively or negatively charged depending on their characteristic atomic structure, which is defined by their arrangement of protons, neurons, and electrons. One cannot say that all our inorganic minerals are either positive or negative. So, yeah, we often get these blanket statements that people throw out, and people want us to comment. And the comment goes on to say you get organic minerals from living foods, and that's where I protest. Most plant foods are depleted of minerals, so you would have to do a lot of work to educate farmers to replace minerals in their soil to be able to say that plants have the minerals that we require. I have many customers who drink 40 ounces of green drink a day or are vegans who are magnesium deficient and must take supplements. And I finish up by saying taking your ReMite and ReMag and loving them together as the summer's hot. So yes, this person is saying that they're on ReMag and ReMite, and they just wondered about this question. But there's so much disinformation out there now that people just get inundated, and they will read an article like anti-dietary supplement article and stop taking their supplements because of it. It's very frustrating. A YouTube testimonial. I've been using Dr. Dean's RNA Reset program for 3 weeks now. I'm 61 years old, certified public accountant who had to retire early for health reasons. I'm amazed at the difference in how my body feels. I've suffered with degenerative disc disease in my neck, back, and also have hypothyroidism. I really cannot believe the difference in how I feel. I thank Dr. Dean for developing this program. I was also having heart palpitations, and they have now disappeared. Also, my body is feeling stronger every day. I'm looking forward to going back to work. I believe that my body was breaking down due to lack of minerals and magnesium. Thank you. So that's what frustrates some people is in 3 weeks this wonderful person is turned around and they're still struggling. But you know what it is? It's especially when you have heart palpitations and when you've had them for decades, and then you want them to be gone overnight or, in a month at least. And then the months drag on and you still have some of your palpitations. But what you have to realize is kind of quantify them a bit. As I said earlier, one of our questioners, I said he's probably 75% better, but he's only focusing on the 25% that he still feels he's experiencing. Now, what is this? Oh, yes. This is our pilot, our 65-year-old pilot, and he's responding to one of our blogs about do you want to boost your brain power? And he says, thank you again for these amazing Pico-sized supplements and important fact-based emails. I'm a commercial pilot, certified flight instructor, recovering from a brain injury from a concussion nearly 4 years ago. So he wasn't able to fly. He was deemed, quote, unfit. So he said, I was reading this while taking a drink from one of my 6 pre-mixed ReMag, ReMite, Hestia and Himalayan pink salt filtered water bottles. 4 weeks ago, I achieved a perfect scoring on my FAA cognitive tests. Soon I will have my FAA medical back after these years of cognitive training and testing. Also, I'm 65 years old and attained perfect scores, beating out 18 to 70-year-old pilots who scored 5 to 10 errors regularly. And he's talking about different specific tests, but he's saying he's scoring better than the 18 to 30-year-old pilots. My brain and confidence level is better than my younger days, and certainly before the bike accident, in part due to having the right Dr. Dean Pico size, absorbable minerals and vitamins and regimen outlined by Dr. Dean. So that's awesome. I mean, getting back your pilot's license at age 65. I'll just do one more and then I'll go to Ginny. Someone says, I missed a step and fell at a gas station, hit the cement on my right side of my forehead. I had a friend drive me to the ER as my bump was now the size of a jumbo egg. The ER doctor did a scan. I had a hematoma and a concussion, but no internal bleeding, no fracture. I checked with my GP 10 days later. She was amazed that the area was healed with no discoloration, no black eye. She asked if I had a headache. No. Dizziness. No. Nausea. No. Mental and fuzzy thinking. No. She concluded that I healed much better than her patients in their 20s and 30s. Now, this lady doesn't say how old she is. Their problem, she said, lasted longer, even weeks and months. I take ReMag, Remite, RNA drops. I bathe my brain with good fats from a keto diet. Thank you, Dr. Dean, for your wonderful products. Yes, it's a female. And that's awesome. Thank you. Okay.
Carolyn, let me just ask the follow-up 2 questions that we have here with just 4 minutes left in the show. One was Marv, who typed back and said, I was informed 2 months ago. So that's when she got her diagnosis about the thyroid nodule. And she says, yes, Dr. Dean, I am looking for a new doctor. Remite, I take 1.5 teaspoons a day, 3 ReMag teaspoons, 1 Recalcia. I sip them all day long with my sea salted water. Are those doses okay?
Yes, it sounds okay. Now, what will quickly go to Marv is total biology, because in total biology, the thyroid is related to time. If you're trying to speed up time or slow down time, what you'll find from your better doctor is what your thyroid hormones are doing. And if you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or if your brain is trying to stimulate and create these nodules because you need more thyroid hormone because you're trying to make time. If that jogs a little bit with what you're experiencing, you could have a conversation with Dr. David Holt, our total biology enthusiast, who does great work with our patients and customers. The thyroid takes care of the time and speed. So, yes, I don't know. Do we have an FAQ on the thyroid and total biology, Jenny, that we give out or not?
Actually, no, we don't, but we should probably work something up. But no, we don't.
Right. I can take some text from my notes just so you know what we're talking about, because thyroid is so common, and you have to look at it from the physical standpoint with your doctors first, and then you look at the total biology of why you could be creating these nodules, for what purpose. And that is very real, how your mind can be trying to solve a conflict, solve a problem in your world by making more thyroid tissue.
Hey, Carolyn, did you do the 29-year debilitated person who went back to work?
Jenny did say that someone who'd been on disability for 30 years went back to work, but we don't have the details on her yet. Right, Jenny?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I know her. Yeah, we'll do it next week. But okay, and then final question, Ginny, please ask Dr. Dean about calcium particles being released in the semicircular canal of the ear. Is this due to high or low calcium in the body?
High calcium. And you want enough magnesium to dissolve those particles once they start precipitating around in the body. And, you know, it's not a stretch to say many things are calcification because we're all over-calcified with our diet and with the supplements we've taken over the years. And that's that. That's the end of the story. Right, Jenny?
That's the end of that story. Okay, very good. Thank you, audience. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, those who've listened to the replay and will be listening throughout the week. Thank you, all of our great customers. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Carolyn. Great show. And we'll be back again next week with more good stuff. And thank you, Super Dusty, for coming back to the fold.
Right. Thanks, Jenny. Ditto everything Jenny said.
Yay!
You've been listening to Live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here on AchieveRadio.com. Till next time, so long, and thanks for all the fish.
AchieveRadio.com.
Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is AchieveRadio.com.